Hi, folks. Welcome to Cherry Hill East High School, home of gymnastics and the home of all gymnasts. We're fortunate tonight that we have Don Goebel, who is a past Cherry Hill East gymnast, who is also one of our coaches, to help with the commentary on tonight's meet. And we also have Mark Gordon, who is probably at this time one of our best vaulters here at Cherry Hill East. As of today, Cherry Hill East gymnastic team is 3-0. Cherry Hill West, we're facing them today, and unfortunately they've lost only to Haddon Township, a very, very tough team. As you can see, the order of events are the Olympic events. We first go to floor exercise, then we go to side hills, rings, vaulting, parallel bars, and horizontal bars. Don was one of the great gymnasts here at East. He was here when the team won 2 championships, South Jersey championships in a row. 75 was it, Don?
Yeah, that's correct, 75 and 76.
Here's Fortune. He's only a sophomore, and he's starting out on his floor exercise. He does a front flip to immediate straddle, which is a B move. You want to tell him about the A, B, and C moves, Don?
The A move is basically the beginner's move, or the easiest move, the B move being the intermediate move, and C trick would be a superior trick. And that's how the judges and the competitors determine which trick is more difficult and least difficult.
Here's a nice back semi. A little short, though. He could have had a little more height. What do you think, Mark? He's your teammate.
Yeah, he could have had a bit more height, but he's a pretty good gymnast all around. He has lots of time to improve on it, being only a sophomore.
Got a lot of tricks, I feel, but he's really lacking the form, and I think that comes with a little more experience, a lot more experience. Although I can't say he didn't do too well tonight. Doesn't seem to hold that handstand. I think they're going to really take off a lot for that. Also the form. Those toes are pretty flat. Got to point them a little more. But for a sophomore, he's pretty awesome.
He's got a lot of good potential in there, Coach. A lot of the tricks that he has been doing, particularly the round off back handspring, back somersault. He's got some good height on some of the tricks, as you said before. He just needs to improve on his form.
Here's Kane from Cherry Hill West. Nice round off, back handspring. And what's he doing? A little backward roll. I think he miscued there a little bit. Wasn't really in his routine, perhaps. Scale, not too bad. And that little step back's going to cost him. That's a football.
He'll lose a tenth of a point for that, most likely.
You can really go in the hole, or in the bucket, so we say, with a lot of football. And I think one of their better gymnasts really has a great deal of football, and it really cost them later on in this meet. The requirements for floor, well, first of all, you've got to have a hold, and you have to show toe, front and back. You also have to have a handstand, a press handstand to show his strength, and you've got to cover most parts of the mat, all parts of the mat. Here's Ricochet, the fall from East. Nice standing back tuck. Starts off with a round off, and what was that, an Arabian front? Missed that one.
Arabian front, he over-rotated it, and that's what made him land on his belly.
I wouldn't give him credit for that. Little walk's going to cost him. Plus, it really wasn't a real press handstand.
And he didn't hold it.
Not bad. Handspring front, was that?
Handspring front.
That's a V move. Holding the scale all right. A little wobbly at first. That might have cost him a little bit. That's those footballs we're talking about. Handspring, handspring. That's a little corner move to get you out of the corner, get you going the opposite way. You should have held the handstand there, but he didn't do it. A bad dismount. Should have been up a little higher.
I think the way he could have improved on that fast touch is by using his arms as far as lifting with his arms also.
You know, I was talking to CJ, who's another one of our coaches. By the way, he was the assistant coach at Temple. Now they got a new theory with his back semi, that they just bring their hands up to shoulder height, and then they press down, and that gives them more lift, supposedly, and keeps the rotation. I heard it at a clinic, too, and it has some merit. the colleges are really pushing this. So who knows? It might be like the Russian front, and that came into its own too, you know.
This gymnast from West is showing something we haven't seen yet, and that's flexibility, which, although it is not a requirement, is very, very important in a gymnast routine and throughout every piece of apparatus in a gymnast work.
What do you think about trying the JV meet and the varsity meet at the same time? Letting all these people who don't really get a chance to get in the meet, get involved, where we really had a crowd, didn't we?
Yes, it did draw a lot of people out to see the gymnastics meet. A lot of parents who would normally be reluctant to come and see their sons sit on the bench were able to actually see them perform in a meet situation.
You know, I coach wrestling, as you're well aware, and wrestling's a tough sport, but I think gymnastics is a much tougher sport in the effect that you don't really see improvement the first week or the first year. It takes 4 or 5 years. Here's Kevin Ciano. Kevin had a lot of back semis in here. Those are C moves when they're coupled back semi together.
Kevin's a very strong tumbler. I think you can see it by the way he constantly is using his legs and his arms to throw. And what Kevin lacks, though, is a clean routine. By that I mean that he doesn't put it all together neatly.
I think that'll come with more maturity and more concentration. Not that he isn't mature
True.
physically and mentally, but gymnastics takes a great deal of concentration, and I think it takes a while to develop that. Like, for instance, that over-rotation there. He was certainly up high enough where he could have landed that, and I don't think he really had an awareness of where he was or really was concentrating enough when he threw that trick.
That's true. It does take an extreme amount of awareness and know-how to where your body is at all times.
It was really low, but it might not be there. Arms are a little wide on his back hamstrings. What do you think?
Yeah, I find the best way is to brush your arms right past your ears. You bring them back to get the most power out of your back hamstrings. And you'll see good gymnasts doing them with their arms as close as they can.
You have to push off those toes. He might almost made that press. That wasn't bad. That wasn't too bad. I wouldn't give him credit for it, though, would you?
No, I would not give him credit for a straight arm, straight leg press handstand.
Oh, by the way, the scoring goes from 0 to 10, and most gymnasts start out with, I think, what is it, 9-4?
Yes.
And each move has got a certain value. They've got to do 5 A moves, and no, you know, no, it's 5, 4, and 1. 5, 4, and 1. 5 A's, 4 B's, and 1 C in our league. That's class 3. Olympics have class 1, class 2, and class 3. We're class 3. We're sort of like USGS.
USGS, United States Gymnastics Federation.
Here's Harrison. He's only a freshman, and he's got a lot of potential. One thing, here's, I don't know if you saw that pass. That last pass was tremendous. Back semi full.
Russian lift front to a forward roll.
Now, the Russians really devised a new way of doing a front way back, and a lot of the Americans have taken it over where they get the lift by throwing their arms behind and chesting it up. They're trying to actually bring their rear end over their shoulders. And that's really the essence of all tumbling, to get those hips up, raise the hips. You either in a tuck position, up with the knee close to the chest, or in a tight position, sort of like touching your toes, or a laid out position. Here's an instant replay of this full that we talked about. Watch this move. Look at the strength, coordination, and timing, really the twisting motion. And coming right back into the back handspring out of it shows an awful lot of control when you can tumble right from that to another move. Usually they just try to land that thing. Look at that nice twist. Feet are a little apart, though, as you land. That's the end. You see it from the beginning and you see it at the end. It might, of course, it has a different preceding part, and usually they don't count as a deduction for that. Now, if you did that a third time with the same preceding part, going to be some deductions involved. He doesn't press his handstand, as you notice, sort of kicks into it. But now he didn't hold his handstand either, so he didn't get any credit for a hold. So that's where he's losing points.
That was a nice
Cunningham.
high Arabian front tummy there too, Coach.
Yes, it was. This is Cunningham, and he's a junior, I believe, for West. Fine young lad. I tried to talk him into going to East, but he wouldn't hear me. Most of these boys on the off season go to different gymnastics schools, and it's not like a sport that you can just practice during the season. You really have to practice all year long. Wouldn't you say this is true, Gordon? I know you had mono last year, and that really hurt you a little bit. What do you think about that, Gordon?
Yes, not being able to practice gymnastics year-round does seriously affect the gymnast's ability to perform, since after a week there's a noticeable lack of strength and flexibility, which seriously can affect the gymnast.
Watch this move right here. Back handspring. Front. That's that Arabian front we talked about before. Full twisting. Dive roll. Beautiful. Could have had his feet a little closer together. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, I agree. It's a move like that when you're twisting in air, the tighter you are, meaning your legs together and your arms as close to your chest as possible, makes the move look a lot prettier, and will score some more points with the judges.
Here's Harris Sheckman.
Same thing there on Harris's back full. He should have kept his legs together.
I think he's got what I call a lot of pizzazz, though, a lot of presence of mind that comes from a lot of hard work. That's a nice healing. That's a little corner move he picked up from Sujay, and he does that quite well. We're pretty fortunate, though, here at East that we have 4 coaches. 2 coaches who volunteered their services, you, Don, and we really appreciate it, being an ex, I shouldn't say an ex, but really an ex-gymnast here at Cherry Hill East. And we have a tremendous person in Carl Poplar, who is a lawyer and went to Syracuse University. I'm pretty sure he finished 3rd in the IGLs, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And in parallel bars, he's just a super person. He's a top-notch criminal lawyer, too. I don't know if you know that.
I knew he was a lawyer. I didn't know what sort of law he was into.
Russian front.
Here's that Russian front. Back handspring. Another back handspring. And here it is, a full twisting back somersault. Nice move. Got to get his feet together, though. What do you think, Don?
Same thing. Here's another Russian lift front. And you can see he sort of pulls his rear end over his head by thrusting his elbows up and backward. And that's a 1.5 there, meaning he lands on his belly instead of landing back on his feet.
That's C rating. Get C credit for that. That's full is C credit, too. So you can replace B's with C.
I believe we moved to the pummel horses right now. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
This is still tumbling. And here's a guy that's got an awful lot of foot fault, but he's tumbling, it's soaring. I mean, he really got tumbling. You see all those little foot faults. I don't know, he must have quite a few of them. Watch this. That's what's really hurting this guy's routine. But he's super. This is Cruz from West. And
He just lost a 10th there by wiggling his feet out to the side.
He's losing a little more now with that little step back. He lost 2 there. Look at that punch front. Now he's losing there, too. And, of course, that loses quite a bit. But he's super height. Flexibility is outstanding. I really think, wow, looks like a little side semi almost, didn't it? Instead of an Arabian front.
Yeah, he really pulled hard.
He's losing all that. I don't think they'll give him credit for that side scale. That little movement of the foot really hurt him a little bit.
My opinion of scales has always been if you're not going to do it with really good form, you might as well not even do it at all because it doesn't really look pretty. And I think you're right. When you start to wiggle your foot and you don't have complete control of your balance, the judge isn't going to appreciate it, and he's not going to see that you have full control of the move either.
The difficulty was really there. I mean, no question about it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have scored him so high. But he lost an awful lot on those footballs. His form, well, notice those back handsprings with his feet separated. That's deductions too. I don't think that, the judges at the high school level are real critical. Maybe I'm being overcritical, but they do a good job. It's a tough sport to officiate. And these fellows did an excellent job this night. Maybe I'm a little prejudiced because we did so well, but I don't think so. I really believe they did a good job. Of course, Gordon, I know, loved the way they officiated.
The reason he went sideways on that Arabian Summy was the fact that he didn't turn completely with his head and shoulders. He turned 1/4 instead of 1/2. It's very good lift on his back Summy work, though.
That's a C move right there, back immediate front. It's a shame he didn't land it. That's all deductions right in there. Here we come to side horse. We're going to start out with Kay from Cherry Hill West.
Probably the most demanding of all 6 events, and probably the most ugly to watch as far as fan support, but it is a very beautiful event for the gymnasts themselves. They're the only ones that can really appreciate the difficulty of supporting yourself on your arms for an entire routine.
Well, Don, I don't know about that. We have an excellent program here at East, and I believe our principal and department chairman, Mr. Oliver, has made it come to be. And when I say that, I'm not looking for brownie points, but really every freshman has to take gymnastics, and they appreciate how difficult it is to do some of these skills in the sideways. Just supporting your weight is a chore, let alone the circles. Now, here's Harrison. He's only a freshman, and here, watch his mount. He sits, and that's going to cost him 5 points. Every time your feet touch, feet aren't allowed to touch. You got to have a lot of swing from the hips in there, and you really have to switch your balance from shoulder to shoulder. When you're cutting your leg to the left, you got to have all that weight on the right. Look at Sujay back there. He's disgusted. He's a perfectionist. He's getting a little curious. You practice so long, and in practice here, he hits that mount every time, and here when it comes to the meet, the pressure is really on. Here's Mr. Hockenberry from Cherry Hill West. And Ken fell right off of the thing. It's tough to get him out. And that's what the judges really look for, I feel. Although they might not tell you this, I feel they look for your mount and your dismount. As long as you've got the requirements in the middle, you can get a good routine and it's clean. But I think that really hurts people when they don't hit their mounts or dismounts like he did. And his score is going to show it.
I know that Marco always stresses it in the practice sessions at Cherry Hill East. Gymnastics is an expression of yourself. And when you get up there and you're making your initial move, which is the mount, and you tend to miss it, the judges kind of wonder what the rest of the team is going to be like, and you really have to come back and hit the rest of your team right on the head if you're going to make a very good impression with the judge, I think.
Here's Kevin Ciano down there. He's got nice foot. See those 2 young ladies in the back there. They're our managers. And that's Rachel Friedman and Casella, Miss Casella. They're terrific. I mean, you can't ask for better managers. They make our team life complete. I don't know if you know it, but Casella had a work on like 2 days a week. And you know what she did? She baked a whole tin of cookies. Let me tell you, I'm fat now, but I got fatter then. I really appreciate that. I think that's what makes coaching gymnastics enjoyable when you have managers like that. And the guys really appreciate them. Of course, being as pretty as they are doesn't hurt either. What do you think about that, Gordon?
Oh, no, it doesn't hurt at all.
I didn't think so. I think the gymnast's mind is really attuned to beauty and harmony and strength and flexibility, and I think girls just come along with that, don't you agree? Here's Rikachevsky. Paul, did I tell you what happened at the last meet? He has a tough name to pronounce, and so does Sujay. So when they announced his name, they announced Sujay as Souffle, and they announced Rikachevsky as Rikowski, and that name is stuck. And it's really funny, but don't dare say it, you know, in public, because they really get upset about it. So we don't do that anymore. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, should I?
All of Cherry Hill is going to know about it now.
That's where that happened. The Leonard thing, or is that before him?
I believe it was time for the South.
Was it well, I knew it was one of those movies. They're all a blur now.
Yes.
He had a reversing direction, didn't he, there?
Yeah, that cost him 1 to 3 tenths there.
That on the horse, that's 5 tenths. Good looking one, man. He's just tightened up a little bit. I think a lot of that score would be a lot higher than it is.
Pommel horse is an event where if you're on the taller side with nice long legs and long arms, you can make the event look a lot prettier.
Even though here's Meckler, and he works hard at this event. You know, a lot of people can't work pommel horses, but they really got to grow in it. They claim that you have to be at least 5'2" to work pommel horse. I don't really believe it. I think Meckler does a nice job on this.
He does. He's really clean. My only problem with him, and I was talking about in meetings, I wish he would slow down and show the moves that he has, because he does have some good moves that he does do in his routine.
That's a problem with all young gymnasts, I feel. That they don't want to show off what they have. They go so fast. Now here it's really a seasoned veteran, and he does a real nice job here, but he's got some form breaks that are hurting him. I think last year he won it. He's Cunningham. And he's only a junior. One of the nicest things that his parents got for him was this mushroom. And it paid off. Because when you're too young, really, to work that big horse, you can work on this mushroom, which is actually in the shape of a mushroom. And you're going to get one. As you can see, his score tells the pass, 6.2. That's pretty good.
We use one of those, Coach, up at my school in Connecticut, and we find, particularly with the younger gymnasts, learning the basic movement, which he is showing us now on the screen, double leg circles, it's a lot easier for a smaller gymnast to learn without the pummels on that soft mushroom.
I don't know who, but I remember reading it was either the Japanese or the Russians that came up with that teaching aid. And, well, they started out with the buck here years ago. Remember we had the small buck?
Sure.
Oh, you don't remember. This was back in prehistoric times.
Sawed-off pummel horse.
That's what it was. And you didn't know what it was for, but that's what a lot of gymnasts used because it was so small, and that's where they really originated. But the mushroom is circular, and it's really a lot better for those circles. If I had my way, every kid would build his own on my gymnastic team. You know, a lot of this homemade equipment that you buy or build for gymnasts on the off-season, if they just work on it every day, makes a big difference.
It's amazing what the little work every day, the improvements you can see when gymnast comes back to school.
Oh, here I'm yelling at somebody. He's not allowed to take a flash picture. In fact, the judge just came over. This is Fortune, I think's older brother. And he really didn't mean any harm, but, you know, you just don't know. That really can upset the gymnast.
When a gymnast falls off a piece of the event, he has 30 seconds to remount.
It looks like he's finishing off strong. Each one of these requirements are double leg cuts, or scissors as they're called, and double leg circles. You have to have scissors either back or front, 2 in succession. You have either 2 front scissors and 1 back, or 2 backs and 1 front, which fulfills the requirement. Otherwise, you're going to be deducted heavily. That form break and also that fall off the horse cost him 5 tenths. That's what's hurting him. And he's got a few stops in there.
He doesn't extend on his circles, Coach. I think that's the problem.
Up in the front, really.
The big thing on pommel horse is to keep your center of gravity constant. And Harris kind of changes it around back and forth, and that's why he had the form break and lost his balance and fell off.
You know, it's amazing, though. Here's a guy who really wasn't too good when he left last year. He just started with pommels, and he's really a hard worker, and he's really come a long way. You can imagine how much he's improved since last year. It's amazing.
I remember seeing Harris in the USGF Division 2. I believe he won the pommel horse again, if I'm correct.
Right. Here's Rosendahl, Mark the wrestler for him, and he really doesn't practice much gymnastics other than during the season. He's extremely strong, and his big problem really is a real awareness of where his body parts are in space. I I really feel if he was tumble more, and I've even told him that he would make a tremendous gymnast. He's got the strength, he's got the flexibility, he's got the smarts. I really think a gymnast has to be smart.
There's no doubt about it. You have to be intelligent about your own ability to do tricks. And also, it does take a lot of thinking when you are on pieces of apparatus and doing practices.
That's it, so it takes a little short. And practice all season, so we need, so, you know, skills and stuff, but he's coming along. I'm really pleased and satisfied with him. And really a pleasure to have boys like this in the gymnastics team because he's a hard worker during the season. He sort of motivates everybody else to work around him. That's Coach Meehan. And first up on the rings is Ken Ryan.
He's had some good form here, both on his mount and his right to his to the shoulder stand. His legs are together and toes have been pointed the entire time.
Hey, Fran Meehan done a good job coaching these boys. And his assistant, Kevin Karch, is no slouch either. I was fortunate enough to go over one night. Kevin was teaching Cunningham a mount on the high bar. And he didn't have it the night before. Lo and behold, when he comes into this meet, he's going to have it. You'll see it later on.
Yeah, I competed against Kevin. I remember Kevin from high school. Kevin's an excellent gymnast. I believe he went to University of West Virginia and competed there for 4 years.
You know, Kevin's been working over my brother's gymnastics school routinely. And kids seem to like him. At least West boys really look up to him. And he can do what he teaches.
Sure
and that's
can.
a plus. That's a real plus for a gymnast, the coach. This was a pleasant surprise for me, I'll tell you. Here's Paul Rickacheski, and he's come a long way this year. I mean, really a long way.
Paul's a little weak on the dismount. He did a dislocate flyway with a half turn. Now, he didn't really finish through on the dismount. He doesn't pull hard enough, I believe, on the dismount. If he pulled a little bit harder with his arms and started to pitch and feet up, he'd be able to finish that dismount with no problem.
I tend to agree with you, man. Definitely.
I don't know whether he's just too fatigued at the end of his routine or he just doesn't really have a grip on that trick yet, but he'll get it by the end of the season, I'm sure.
I think, you know, it's tough to psychoanalyze or, you know, really get what the guy's doing. But he's really an intense individual, and I think sometimes in his intensity, he forgets to breathe and relax. And relaxation and breathing is important. He wants to do so well, and he works so hard in practice that sometimes when he gets into the meet, there's a momentary lapse of concentration, or he tightens up, and I think that blows his routine.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do routines that last about a minute to 90 seconds without breathing. Yeah, it goes.
And I think that's what he tends to do. As far as strength is concerned, he's got it. And he's got the flexibility, and he's got the kinesthetic sense. He tumbles well. I think tumbling is really the key to gymnastics. If you have a tumbler, he can usually work any event because what you're really doing is tumbling with the equipment.
That's where most gymnasts start also. Start when they're 2 or 3 years old, I guess, doing forward rolls on the floor.
Here's Kevin Piano holding what they call a back lever. And you notice he's got to be pretty strong because you notice his head is down, where his head should be up. And it's pretty tough to hold the back lever that way. Dislocates a little flat. Quite flat. And he's swinging hard on those rings. That's going to be deduction. Off the mat.
That dismount he did is usually a B or an intermediate trick. But I believe the judges would only give him an A credit for that because he didn't do it above the rings or at least ring level. Am I right, Coach?
You're right. You notice I took my shirt and I sort of pushed out, and I was telling Sujay that my heart was pumping out as he was swinging on those rings. So it's pretty dangerous when you start swinging and try to do a flying dismount. You haven't worked flying rings in a long, long time.
It's also a deduction, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Straight body inverted hang. The way it should be done. That a back upright we saw there?
He was attempting. It looked like a front upright from medial seat, and he didn't hit it. But he worked his way out of it pretty well there, I think.
Who is that?
That's Cruz.
Cruz, that's right. Wow. He's having a tough night tonight. He started out well on floor. Usually over 30. I don't think he scored 30 tonight.
This is Matt Harrison. I think Matt really has some super potential, particularly on this event in the high bar. What Matt needs, I feel right now, is some handstand work, and that comes with a little bit more strength. Not that the boy isn't strong now, but it does take some time to develop strength in specific muscles, particularly on the ring event.
I tend to agree with you there. And I think maturation, he's very young. And you really don't get that maturation until you get older. You got to really grow to get that strength. It's like comparing a freshman wrestler with a senior wrestler. No matter how much skill you have, you just don't have that manly strength that a senior has. That's a beautiful dismount. Took one step back, and he just has the pizzazz. He has the gymnastic awareness, and that comes from a lot of gymnastics from an early age.
And he has a good time, too.
He enjoys himself.
Here's his dismount. Again, he'll be working into a back flyaway with a full twist.
Now, see those feet separated a little bit in the air, but not bad for that landing. Pretty tight. I know I was pleased with that routine, and I think CJ was too. You can't really expect much from a freshman, but he's really coming through for us. He's been one of our big guns. Of course, they don't take the place of our seniors. No taking the place of seniors. I tease him all the time. I told him the first meet he was only one amoeba, one celled amoeba, and he didn't know what I was talking about. I said, well, if you do well, we'll make you a 2-cell amoeba. And he agreed. He's a 2-cell now, and he's almost moved to a 5-cell as far as I'm concerned. I think what's great about gymnastics is if you've done a routine, when it shows you really the key. You get their 1-minute routine, your muscles right there, and you do have a little time to socialize. There's a little camaraderie that you don't find in any sports, other sports, where it's an individual event. I mean, you find them in other sports, but not as much as in gymnastics. I think maybe it's, I don't know, I guess the fact that everybody's spotting one another and worried about each other's safety when they're working out and worrying about them doing the trick properly, that you don't find this in team sports. You don't find this in other sports as much. Maybe you do. I don't know. What do you think about that one?
I'd say you're right there. It is a great individual accomplishment, but while you are performing, the thoughts of most of your other teammates are on you and how you do and how your dismount turns out. Like Harris really stuck his dismount above his back, and the jubilation of his teammates is so obvious.
And the safety factors, everybody's worried about when he's learning this trick. Is he going to come out of it all right? Are we spotting him right? One little mishap and he lands on his head, he messes up the mat, and we don't want him to mess up the mat, right?
No.
So the next performer has to go right up. No, but really, we really worry about the safety of the performer, and we really concerned. Sujay's right in there. Tremendous coach and a tremendous spotter.
Mark's got what we call in the business very fast hands. He knows how to spot very well.
And I was kidding Mark the other day about the rings. Those rings are swinging, and it's tough when you have to jump somebody up. And Mark can just, with that 4-inch mat underneath, Mark can just stand there and still the ring. So I teased him the other day. I said, Mark, you know why we have you as a coach, don't you? He said, I don't know. He said, well, because you can still those rings without jumping up. I don't think he liked that. But it's amazing. Gymnasts come in all sizes. You have tall, small. You look at the coach at Temple. He's really small. And look at Mark. Mark is really tall, and he's an excellent gymnast. He won, I don't know if he won the Masters, but he came in pretty high in that Masters third, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Third in that Masters. Here's Cunningham. and not a bad dismount at all. Didn't stick it, but, you know, minor deduction, but I don't think it was above the range like
No, Harris was definitely had the amplitude, meaning he was above the rings on the dismount, and that would give him the greatest score.
Here's vaulting, and vaulting is a little different than the other events in the fact that each vault is scored for a difficulty rating. For instance, the handspring. Now, a handspring, the max I think you can get on a handspring, Gordon, that's your vault. What is that?
It's a 9.0.
9.0.
We're going to have to be very critical of Gordon here when he vaults, since he's sitting right here with us.
Gordon qualified, you know, already for the state meet last section of the state meet last year as a junior. And here's Harrison. This is tough for Harrison to vault. But he does a nice job.
What the judges are looking for is pre-flight, meaning the flight before you hit the horse, and post-flight, which is the distance from the horse to where your feet land. And those are the two predominant things the judges will be looking for besides the vault and the form.
What was that?
That was a hamstring
Hip? Or was it a cartwheel hip? I don't know. Here's Kevin Ciano. Look at the intensity of that run. Buried his head. That's what hurt that ball.
He buries his head. He doesn't push off the horse as quickly and with as much power or repulsion as he could.
Bass looks like he's checking. He's not too sure of that board. You know, it's up to the coach. Take your life in your hands whether the coach sets that board right for you.
That's true. That's not all bad vault that he had
That's
right
a
there.
qualifying score in 8-1. And he'll go to sections with that ball. That was a real nice ball. He had lots of distance.
Here, a replay.
And,
that's your pre-flight now.
Post-flight. Nice post-flight. It's a shame. Not a bad landing, really, you know.
And
Nice
here
job.
comes Gordon now.
Gordon with a half. And really, I don't think you twisted. You didn't really twist at the right time. And that's why,
Yeah, I twisted while I was still on the horse, which is not the proper thing to do.
here's Cruz.
He did the same vault that Gordon did on hamstring and a half, and I believe he had the same fault also, is that he started to twist while he was on the horse.
Yeah, you're right. 100% right. You know, I can't understand, Gordon, how you can vault so well in practice. I guess the meet.
Here's Harris Sheckman doing a handspring front.
Wow, unbelievable.
935.
You're right, Coach.
Watching it again, you see Harris, I believe, the coaching taught him really well, but he attacks the piece. He runs down there with a full head of steam.
There's vengeance in his eyes. And boy, you have to have a lot of courage for this vault. And a lot of tumbling ability. Look how high he is over that horse. And look at the post flight. And he almost sticks it. Just one little hop. Up.
Well, a couple little ones.
Yeah, I missed those.
I believe that's the first time he landed on his feet all week, too.
Yeah.
Now we hit a few in practice. Well, here we go to parallel bars, and here's Matt Harrison, that little freshman that really is doing so well in this meet. How you doing, John Stash? You just finally arrived, huh? John Stash, by the way, is a fantastic wrestler. He wrestled for me last year and was undefeated in JV and wrestled a few varsity matches in the past. Done a good job. John came out this year for gymnastics. And, John, how do you feel about gymnastics? What were your feelings before you came out?
Well, before I came out, I thought sport was pretty easy, you know. And when I came out and tried it, you can't downgrade it because it's hard, really hard work.
Well, what makes it so hard, John? What do you think? You know, you can't compare sports. I mean, wrestling is wrestling, gymnastics is gymnastics. They're both great sports. But what made you change your mind about gymnastics? I mean, in particular, what do you find that the difference is between the two sports, if there is a difference?
So in gymnastics, you have to make yourself work to be good and hit your style. wrestling, you know, you got people backing you up and your coaches help you. So, like, the more harder you work in gymnastics, the better you'll do. It's a real tough sport.
Here's a little guy from West. I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, Ken Hockenberg. You can see his score is a 2.6, which is pretty good. A little form break. Here's Mark Rosenberg. And Mark's really come a long way. Mark also was an undefeated wrestler last year. And he's got a little more experience than you. And he's in the same event, too. John Sass was in this JV match. What was your score in the JV match this year?
2.5 on parallel bars, which is, you know, pretty good for me for.
It's excellent. Hey, it's really an excellent thing because it's the first year you've ever done gymnastics.
Yeah.
Of course, you got a big advance, maturity and strength. Says a lot, but it doesn't take the place of skill. And I think you're really working hard, self-motivated to get that skill. Mark's got a lot of problem with swing, as you can see here. Too many extra swings. And that's the first time he tried a back off in a meet, and that takes a lot of guts.
Yeah, he was thinking about that, and I've been trying to do that, and I'm a little scared still to do that.
It does take a lot of guts and a lot of courage, no question about it. You can always fall on some soft guy when you're wrestling, but when you fall on those bars, you know you're falling on something hard. Who's up now? That's Harris Sheckman, isn't it? No, it's Kay. He looks a lot like Harris, doesn't he? He's got that same body type, same build.
Yep.
I really think, though, John, because you and Rosenberg and Harris Sheckman are such close friends and you do everything together, I think that was a little bit of you coming out this year, too.
Eric made me up here. They forced me to get on the team.
And here's Kevin Ciano. Kevin Ciano had a nice meet here. As an all-around, he scored 31.15, which is pretty good. 30 points, and you qualified for the sectional meet. And Kevin is qualified. We've got an awful lot of qualifiers this year for sectional.
Just about everybody.
Yeah. And that's going to be held here at Cherry Hill East, you know, on the 13th of the month of November. And that'll be a Saturday. And that'll be a real good meet to see. And start in the afternoon. We'll have teams from all over South Jersey competing. Mark Sujay looks pretty pleased with that routine. Nice front semi catch. Watch this nice stretch in the front, and watch this front off. Nice combination. Nice combination. Little foot fault there. Didn't land it as well as we would have liked it, but the thrown it the first time in the meet. Pretty decent. And here's Miles Cruz from West. Nice glide kip. Good extension is right. Cut catch could have been a little better. A little bend there, but it's tough when you're doing things in succession. Does it again. That's going to cost him. Run up rising. Looks like he was going for it and missed it. A lot of intermediate swings. That's costing him. And looked like he's going, whoops, back off. Kind of low, but nice score. Got some difficulty in there. If he ever gets that all ironed out and nice and smooth, he's going to have a nice routine. Here's Paul, yeah. Paul's got nice form. A little break there. I talked too soon. Nice straight arm kick. Too many swings. See those intermediate swings? It's so difficult. Nice tight back off.
He likes tight. He likes to be tight, I think.
And here's pass from Cherry Hill West. Nice glide kick. Good form. Notice how he gets up pretty nicely into that shoulder stand. High, too high on that cut catch. You only have to bring those hips up a little bit. Oh, nice back roll. That arm press, handstand, walks it. That's going to cost him. Got a nice tough routine going there for him and a front off. 3.9. Here's Jackie. Got a lot of confidence. I guess that comes with all the years of gymnastics. You know, I picked him out of a gym class. It's really funny. He was running after the big guys with a basketball, and I said to him, "You're never going to be a basketball player. I don't think you're going to grow to be 6 foot. How about coming up for the gymnastics team?" And, you know, it's a funny story. I talked him into it, and here, lo and behold, I went to school with his father, Mr. Sheckman. I went to high school with him. His father was really into weightlifting when he was in high school and had to work at an early age. Super guy, Mr. Sheckman. Of course, I'd never tell him that. Nice cut catch. You see the bent arms? A lot of pressure on you in this kind of a meet, especially when you're going against West, the rivals. Here's Cunningham. Cunningham's a neat guy, really neat guy. Very intense performer. Geez, it's a shame he missed that. You see what happens? That little bend in the knees, that break in form can throw a competitor off so drastically. It's so important to have form when you do a trick, because that makes the trick so much simpler to do. When you break form, my God, it's just it's amazing that you hit some of these tricks with a form break, because you're putting more weight in the wrong places by bending your knees. That's the toughest thing, really, to impress upon a beginning gymnast. Form.
I have a little trouble with that right now.
He's smooth now after that major break. See, too many intermediate swings. He's losing. You've got to do something in the front and the back of your swing, otherwise it's reduction. Nice handstand. Good form there. Maybe holding it a little too long. And, hey, he really held that one. That was a nice pirouette. That's when you move from a handstand, and you can either pirouette backwards or forward and still stay on the bar. Notice how his legs took, he still managed to hold that. A lot of form breaking, and that's what hurt him. And of course, he missed his dismount, his mount rather. Mount is when you get onto a piece of equipment, and you know what a dismount is. When you leave go, and it's how you leave go that really counts. Nice front semi-catch. Little form break, that's going to cost him. Those legs separate. And, you know, when you separate those legs, you really take a chance of crunching those legs on those bars. It's different when you crunch your arm on your opponent when you're wrestling. When you know, guy feels it a little bit maybe, but when you crunch your leg on a bar, nobody feels it but you.
It's all over.
It also makes you a little fearful the next time you get up. Here we go to high bar. So you want to have the least amount of injuries when you're teaching people to do gymnastics as possible. In fact, you don't have any injuries. It's like, there's that flyaway below the bar and doesn't land it. In order to really get credit for a flyaway, you should really do it above the bars. And we let people do it below the bars in high school, but in practice we really want them to do it above the bars. Here's Meckler. He's a sophomore, and he's really come into his own this year. Nice back up rise, back hip, front hip, switches his grip, casts the giant. Oh, doesn't quite hold it. Looked a lot better in practice the other day. Going to go for it again. And again, he pulled it out, but not too well, and came off. That's going to cost him 5. Good thing nobody touched him.
He learned giants, I think, this year, right?
He learned them at the end of last year. I
Yeah.
taught it to him, and we put him in a belt. Put him in a belt last year, and that's where we tried to keep the giants in a belt, overhead belt. And then he did a few without a belt. This was about the last week of gymnastics season. You know, once you learn giants, I really think you're hooked.
Yeah.
And that made him be hooked on gymnastics, and he went to a few schools over the summer, and gotten a lot better. He's a strong little guy. And here's his flyaway. A little low, and he lets go too soon. That's what makes him go out fast.
Timing has to be perfect in this sport, I guess.
Timing is is everything. And of course, doing the trick repetition over and over again safely, you master it. Here's your back hip, hips. Here comes some giants. Well, doesn't quite make it, and Coach Meehan touched him, so that's going to lose 5/10 for him right there. But it's better to touch him and try to stop him than let him fly off in the back. Although I think that perhaps this boy would have been all right, but I as a coach, and I think Fran as a coach, would rather touch you and make sure you're going to be safe than have you peel off. So that cost him 1 point by the coach touching him twice. But, you know some performers. Some performers, you could let them not touch them. They could be safe. But, every coach knows his own performer, and I guess Fran thought he was in trouble and felt better be safe than sorry later. Here's Rikacheski. He's doing some nice fronts. Back hip. He's got good form, but he's not really combining his tricks so they flow. And his pike is a little low. That's what you were talking about. It wasn't above the bar, but that's a B move, pike above the bar. Here's Hockenberry from Cherry Hill West, and this is, of course, the last event in the Olympic order, the high bar, and it's a pleaser. And usually your lower score performers will go first. Not always so, but in this case, I think we're saving our best to last. Notice those giants. See how he's arched? They don't look too good. And what happens by having them arch, he's really deducting. It's only an A move. Remember we talked about A, B, and C moves. And, of course, Fran grabbed him. And all those little swings in between are costing him points. He's losing. And that's a rest up there. That's costing him points, too. You can't rest. It's got to be continuous movement around the bar. And giants have to predominate. You have to have a release also to fulfill the requirement on high bar. And you have to have in-bar work, such as kips and basic stuff. Free hips. That's called in-bar. All right, here we go. And this is little freshman, although I'm starting to think him as a big freshman now. He's really come into his own. His giants have improved greatly, but he's still separating those legs. Now, that's not too bad, that giant. There he's going to full twist dismount. That's what's saving. He's got a nice dismount, and that comes from the tumbling. You notice he does that on the floor, too, a full twist. Yeah. If you can do it on the floor, you can do it up in the air, and that's the whole secret of gymnastics, learning to tumble first. Nice and high, and one step back, and a step forward. If you take that other step back, there'll be more points. That comes with experience and being trained properly, but he didn't take that extra step. Now, here's Miles Cruz. Miles is a fabulous tumbler, very difficult, a lot of difficulty in his tricks. Nice. Toe on, toe off with bent knees. Sometimes you might be better off not even throwing it, but he came out of that pretty nice. Nice back hip. Wasn't free, so he doesn't get the real credit for it. Might even have a deduction for it for going 2 in a row. Coming into that bar a little too quick, maybe. And, of course, there's a lot of stops there. And, didn't cast really well for those giants. Here we go again. And a little low on the flyaway. And a score 4-7, which isn't a bad score. He doesn't look too pleased with his routine. Slow motion. Stoop through, a little bent knee. And he really doesn't have a release, because both hands have to leave that bar simultaneously for you to get full credit. You start out at a 9-4, and if you don't have parts of it, you start out a lot lower. He's got to have giants both ways. He's got his back giants. And here's his flyaway. Nice landing, though. He stuck his landing. He's a little low, though. Here's Harris Sheckman.
His first move is my favorite.
You like this, huh?
Yeah.
All right, nice high start.
Right here.
Here's his front. toe on, toe off. A little late on the toe on, toe off. You notice? Okay, bent arms. That's going to hurt him. Holly hop up. Hollywood hop. And that was his release, really. He had a release. His mount, you couldn't really call it a full release because you're really not leaving. You could, I guess. Some people wouldn't count it as a release. See?
Yeah.
He's holding on with one
Yeah.
hand, so it's really not a release. And that's a vault catch, by the way, if you want to know what that is. That's the same thing that you learn on a side horse when you're real young in junior high school.
Yeah.
Rear vault.
Yeah.
That's all it is really a real vault over the bar, but it's pretty tough when you're doing it up top like that out of giants. Makes it, the timing's just got to be perfect. Nice pirouette, not a pirouette, but line change rather. Toe on, toe off. See, as those knees
Yeah.
bent, and you see he should have shot it up sooner, so he'd be up into that giant position.
Yep.
That's going to cost him. Feet apart, that's cost him. Bent arms, that's going to cost him. A lot of form breaks. He could score a lot higher, but the routine does flow. I mean, he's got everything moving, and there's no really major
No,
stops in
major.
that routine, which counts for an awful lot. Once he cleans up what he has, he's going to have a dynamite routine. And he's got to get that toe on, toe off a little better. And maybe some full pirouettes, what we're looking forward to by states.
He's been working.
Yeah, that's a nice move. We just learned that last night, believe it or not.
Oh.
Kevin Karch was working with it. I had to go over to see Fran last night and pick up the scores for our, not the scores, but actually the names of the opponents, right. See, that's costing him. Too
Yeah.
many giants.
And his legs are bent.
Yeah, see how he's kicking over the
Yeah.
bar. And back hip circle. It wasn't a free hit.
Yeah.
And see that extra swing? That's hurting him. And the dismount, he missed his dismount. He really is an excellent thumb there. And he could score a great deal higher, I'm sure. Now watch the difference between his catch, right, full twist and catch, and Kevin Ciano,
Kevin's,
because
yeah.
Kevin does one too. He's a lot younger than Kevin, though. He's only a junior. Kevin's a senior. And I guess with a little bit more maturity, a few more years and strength, it makes a difference. Although he's got more experience than Kevin in gymnastics, more years of it behind him.
I think this is Kevin's best event right here, high block.
Well, I think it's become his best event because now he's really starting to tumble, and that's helped him a lot. Remember last year? Well, you don't remember because you weren't on the team last year, but last year you couldn't get him to the tumbling mat. All he wanted to do was go on the high block. And last year he didn't make, he had giants last year, he had giants both ways, but he really has come into his own this year as a gymnast. Nice fluid style, good form, and he has his release, with that mount of his. And he's first place, and he's pretty happy. I only staked in for this one, and we're all happy for him.
Nice score.
Look at that nice high start. See it? Now, a little bit of a form break. See the way his legs separated? But he was up nice and high, and that hurt him. See the legs coming apart? Really got to work on that. That's what's so great about videotape. And we got to thank Gordon, because Gordon does a great job. Without him, I don't think we would be where we are, because we count on this videotape an awful lot for correction of skills, because he can see it himself and he can realize it. And that's what makes the correction so perfect. Well, the final totals, as you can see, East 101.70. And John?
Yeah.
What's the
West.
score there?
90.85.
And that was a good time that was had by all here at East. West looks a little glum, but I think we're going to be in for a tough meet when we meet him at third place in the future. And we'd really like to have everybody come out. And you can see Checkman, 39.05 as the first place all-around. Cunningham from West, 32.55, his all-around score. And Ciano, 31.15. And all three have qualified before for the all-around in the sectionals, and they're going to be here at East on November the 13th on Saturday. Next home meet will be at West, and that's West on Thursday, and they're going to meet Tom's River South at 7 p.m. And you know, we're going to have a meet, John. You know when? Not Tuesday, John, but Friday against their sister school, Toms River North. And will be Friday the 22nd at home at 7 p.m. And also, John, you know, we're going to have a real tough meet coming up, East versus West. Boys Gymnastics at West, Tuesday, October the 26th at 7 p.m.